Joining me now to discuss this and more are Renato Mariotti, former federal prosecutor and now legal affairs columnist for Politico, Dean Obeidullah, MSNBC daily columnist and host of the Dean Obeidullah Show, and Judge Lodoris Cordell, former California Superior Court judge and author of Her Honor, My Life on the Bench, What Works, What's Broken, and How to Change It. Thank you all for coming back on the show. Judge Cordell, let me start with you. This afternoon, Trump attacked the judge on his Truth Social platform. He's already attacked the prosecutor and a potential witness, Mike Pence. He's made threats. This is all since his arraignment on Thursday, where he promised not to do any of that. If you were in Judge Tanya Chutkan's place overseeing this 1-6 trial, what action would you be taking against this particular, very high-profile defendant, if any?
When a judge makes an order, the judge expects it to be followed. If the order is not followed, there should be immediate consequences. If not, the judge is not taken seriously. In this case, a magistrate, by the way, who happened to be a woman of color, gave him a directive and an order, and he immediately, in my view, went out and violated it within 24 hours of the order. So it is likely that this issue will be brought before Judge Chutkan, not the magistrate. And for her, I think it is absolutely important that people who do not follow the judge's orders face immediate consequences. So in this instance, I know that the other prosecution is asking for a protective order, but there's still the issue of that order, the threats that he's made, being violated when he was told not to. So I analogize this to a parent raising a child. I have two daughters. I raise them with love, and I also raise them to understand there are consequences for your bad behavior. And in this case, there have to be immediate consequences. So for a child, it's usually, well, you can't go somewhere, you can't go to the party, or a timeout. Here, It's important that you have a timeout. And in my view, the timeout would be, get your toothbrush and spend about 3 to 5 days sitting in jail to think about how serious this is. And now when he's back in court, do you understand this? You got it? Okay, let's proceed. Hopefully, lesson would be learned.
Hopefully. I mean, it's interesting to make an analogy with children because he is the man-child extraordinaire. It also, as an aside, it must be killing him to be coming up against black woman judge, black woman prosecutor again and again. For Trump, it must be killing him. Dean, you have written a piece this weekend calling Judge Chutkan Trump's worst nightmare. Briefly explain why you think that is.
I think for many reasons. First, I should say at the outset, she is going to be not only fair, she'll be perfect in how fair she will be. She has a history of defending defendants' rights. She's a former public defender. Her decisions do that. Donald Trump will get an immensely fair trial. The reason she is his worst nightmare is that, first of all, she already rejected the Trump team's efforts to postpone a response to a motion by 3 days, making it very clear this trial balloon, nope, not doing it. Monday, and I guess John Laura wanted time to go on TV 5 times today. He couldn't work on his motion response. Go home, get out of the green rooms, answer the motion. Secondly, the idea that she's been so harsh in sentencing January 6th defendants. She has been like 80% of the time sentencing beyond what prosecutors want, which means if Donald Trump is convicted of one of the 4 felonies, if not more than that, he's not going to be in Mar-a-Lago, folks. He's going to be in a prison cell where he belongs, and I hope for the rest of his natural life. And also, of course, as the judge has mentioned, that the judge is a black woman, an immigrant, something that Donald Trump really has a problem with. We all remember the send her back chants that he led about Congressman Omar and 4 of the 3 women of color who are in Congress. So together, she's a great judge. She's going to be extremely fair, but she's not going to put up with his games. She's already making it clear, and she's going to send him to jail if he is convicted.
Renato, on the topic of this protective order and Trump's habit of witness intimidation, I just want to fast forward a bit to the first GOP debate. Donald Trump still hasn't committed to whether he's going to participate or not. If he's on that stage with Mike Pence and they're arguing about January the 6th, is that a violation of the order, as Mike Pence might be a witness in the trial? I mean, I know it's all unprecedented. We're in new ground here. But he's also surrounded daily by multiple advisors who, as the Washington Post reports this weekend, his own advisors could be witnesses in more than one of the coming trials. What do they say on a daily basis to him?
Well, it's a great question. And I actually think, as you said, it's unprecedented. I think a different person than Donald Trump could act with a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer here and carefully choose his words and be careful about what he says on the debate stage. Be careful about what he says to his associates. We all know Donald Trump's not going to do that. And I guess from my perspective, what I think the judge is going to do, because she's a very savvy litigator, a lot of experience. I think what she's going to do is, instead of trying to take action based on his speech, let's say in a debate or with his advisors, I think she's just going to continue to rule against him. She's going to continue to accelerate the trial date. Ultimately, from my perspective, she's going to teach him ultimately that at the end of the day, she's the decider, and there's a real big consequence that comes if you're going to try to constantly flout the judge's rules. So I think it'll be indirect, and I think ultimately, as a result of him flaunting and going against the judge's rules, I suspect he's going to get a speedier and speedier trial. That decision recently to deny a motion for just a 3-day extension, I think, is a preview of what's to come.
Judge Cordell, we have the DA Alvin Bragg prosecution of Trump in Manhattan. We have a possible indictment from DA Fonnie Willis in Fulton County, Georgia, coming perhaps any day now. But both Bragg and Willis have said they'll defer to Jack Smith on timelines of trials. How quickly do you think Judge Chutkan could get this trial going? Renato mentioned speedier trial. It's perhaps the most important trial of all. How quickly could it get started? How quickly could it be completed, even, given next November is the election?
Well, every defendant is entitled to a speedy trial. In this instance, when you have a very weak defense, what you do is delay. So it's up to the judge to move things along. However, the judge has to make sure that the defense has ample time to review all the discovery and to get things in order. So while there is a push, there are certain rights that have to be looked at. And it's really interesting. Everyone talks about the federal case, but it is the state court cases where Donald Trump, if he is convicted, has no way of getting out, no way around it. He can't use any kind of authority because the state courts are not under his authority. So I really look at the state court cases as being the ones that can be the most effective if they are to have convictions, if he's convicted in those courts.
Dean, what did you make of the message discipline of some of the Trump defenders, especially in the media, the Wall Street Journal, Fox, the New York Post, National Review, all of conservative media this week? They leapt almost with unanimity to pick up on this. It's an attack on free speech, canard, from the Trump legal team. It was rather stunning to watch, but it can be effective when it comes to messaging.
Not to us. It can be, I guess, to the GOP base. Mehdi, you left out one defense I love. John Lauro said it wasn't criminal what Trump was doing. It was aspirational. See, he just aspired to overturn the election. So it's like me going to a bank and going, I have a gun in my pocket and I'd like all your money. That's not a crime. It's aspirational. I'm aspiring to take the bank's money. You see, I can have a dream. Can I say, look,
I believe all the money's mine. I believe it in my heart that the money's mine.
It's my money. So I'm just aspiring. What are you doing? Imagine if that actually works as defense. We just empty the prisons right now. And the idea that we've never watched an episode of Law and Order. We've never heard anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. We all know this. They're arguing the opposite to common sense. But the right-wing media, I guess it plays their base. Like we learned with the Dominion lawsuit, Fox News and others on the right sometimes don't tell you the truth. They tell their audience what they think their audience wants to hear, even if they're misleading them and making them dumber. They don't care. So that's what's going on.
I guess my worry, Dean, is that right-wing media also influences quote-unquote liberal media. So you have the New York Times running pieces indulging the free speech argument, which I think is a mistake. Renato, what do you make of this new talking point from Trump's lawyer this morning? Meet the Press. He said it only technically violated the Constitution, and that's not a violation of the law of criminal law when Trump told Mike Pence to, delay or throw out the votes or whatever euphemism we want to use.
Well, technically is a word that defense attorneys like. I may have used it once or twice myself when I'm talking about particular regulations or statutes. But, when you're talking about a technical violation, that is when, let's just say, for example, you are supposed to have your fence under 50 feet and it turns out to be 51 or something along those lines, where, yes, you've technically violated the law, but you're complying with or comporting with the spirit of the law. Constitution is not quite that way. It's the law of the land. And as a practical matter here, Donald Trump is accused. I mean, he's innocent until he's proven guilty. But looking at that indictment, he is accused of really, using all sorts of means to deceive the American public in order to unlawfully seize power when it wasn't his and to stay in power beyond the time in which he was supposed to be as president of the United States. is really contrary to the idea of the United States, what makes the United States special, which is the first president willfully stepping down when he was done with his term.
Dean, quick last question to you. It's a subject we've talked about before. Just want to get your view now that the indictment's finally out. Do you still believe Merrick Garland could have done this much earlier? We didn't have to wait this long. We didn't have to wait for Jack Smith.
Mehdi, we're sending a great message that if you attempt a coup, we're going to get you in 2 years and 220 days. Isn't that the turn? Come on. Merrick Garland should have appointed Jack Smith in March of 2021 when he was sworn in, because he knew Donald Trump was just at CPAC 2 weeks before and was going to run. That's the time Merrick Garland could have done it. Jack Smith's done an amazing job in 7 months. I can't applaud him enough. I said before, Mehdi, he's the John Wick of prosecutors. And you keep saying John Wick died in episode 4. He didn't die. He's never going to die.
Hey, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it for people. They're already making John Wick 5. They're making John Wick 5. Calm down, everyone.
So exactly. So just like John Wick lives forever, Jack Smith will live forever in Donald Trump's head as he sits in a prison cell for his last days. That's my hope. I can dream.
We will have to see. We will have to see. We will have to see. You keep aspiring. Renato Mariotti, Judge Ladoris Cordell, thank you for your time. Dean, stick around. I've got some more stuff to talk to you about later in the hour.